Welcome to Free and Accepted Podcasting, Suffolk Freemasons podcast designed to inform, entertain and educate.
Welcome to another episode of Suffolk Freemasons Free and Accepted podcast. I'm Mark Jepson. I am the host for today, and no Roger Corsten today. He's away on holiday, as ever. But my guest today is, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Richard Bowdidge from St Luke's Lodge, and I'm the Community Engagement Team Leader for the province of Suffolk.
Welcome to a podcast.
Thank you.
We've had some lovely guests. You have, a bit like Mark Murphy in the last one we did, you have a number of strings to your bow, don't you?
I do.
So we are going to try and get through all of them in the next 30 minutes or so. So how long have you been a Mason?
I became a Mason in April 2012, and I was introduced by a very good friend of mine, Robert Walmsley, known to me as Bert, and known in Lodge knew him as Bert, so got some very weird looks when I mentioned Bert. But Robert Walmsley, who's been a friend of mine for over 30 years.
It's a bit like Paul Philbin, who's the secretary, provincial Grand Secretary, who retired police officer. We all know him as Cyril, and I think the PGM had to work out was it the same person when he first took on.
Yeah, and his signature block, but Paul brackets, or open quote, Cyril close quotes.
Right. That's right. So you've been through the chair. You're now part of the Stewards Lodge as well. And you've recently become the Community Engagement Team Leader.
I have indeed.
So hell of a title.
Absolutely.
What's it named?
Very good question. Very good question, Mark. I was voluntold by the PGM
I mind that
a few months ago to see if I would take it. I was on the team anyway, and I was invited to take on the role. Community engagement is part of the third pillar review that's been undertaken by Grand Lodge, and it's all about making the things that we know that we do very well within the province, within Freemasonry across the whole of Grand Lodge, but within the province especially, making the community, the general public and other people that we could refer to as stakeholders, getting them more aware of what we do. So as I mentioned when I talked earlier, it's about turning the internal nature and goodwill that we tell each other that we're very good at doing, and turning that around and facing the other way to be able to tell the community about what we're up to, without giving away any of the secrets, obviously, but making sure that people in the general public and those that are have an influence in the community are aware of what we're up to.
And we do a huge amount of positive stuff, don't we?
Absolutely.
And a lot of the positiveness is donating funds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we were touching on this earlier on. So part of it, is it going to be that we're seeing more in action, so to speak, rather than just giving funds out over?
Yeah, I think it will be. I think there'll be a case where we've got the great ideas where we've taken donations. And the example I used earlier was about the teddies that go into hospitals. I think that's a fantastic initiative, and perhaps making that a little bit more in the public domain, and also getting Freemasonry engaging with the community in non-financial ways. And the example I would use is Remembrance Sunday in Ipswich. The doors of Stone Street are thrown open for coffee, and the bars open for the veterans and their families to come in and spend some time and refreshments after the remembrance service. But they can also then engage with the Freemasons. And on the back of that, I know that St Luke's has got 4 potential candidates coming through. So it's that encouragement that there is a community out there that have misunderstanding about Freemasonry or want to find out more about us.
Because I think, as you say, sometimes we could perhaps be more effective if people see what we do in a subtle way.
Absolutely right.
That we're not trying to recruit, and they go, I'd like to learn more about that.
Yeah.
And I've found in this role as communications officer that we've done some charity check donations, and the Armless and the Charity Stewards Conference was a really good one, where the 3 organisations who turned up, who were the main recipients, they actually at the end of the day said, "My word, you're a really good organisation."
Yeah.
Totally blasted through any views that they had.
Absolutely.
The negative views, they actually really appreciate and that's going to be the challenge.
Yeah, it is. And I think I think one of the messages to get across to the community, and I'll use the phrase community rather than general public, because if we look at who the community is, the community that we engage with as an organisation goes from sort of our local government and the councillors and the MPs, through the press, and through people that see us walking out of our Masonic temples of an evening, wondering what's going on in there. There seems to be an awful gathering of undertakers. What are they doing? And I remember when I went to my first Masonic funeral, I thought, there's a lot of undertakers here. And I had no idea that the guy whose funeral I came to was a Freemason, and they were all his fellow brothers that were going to pay their respect. And it's absolutely right. It's getting that message across, getting the curiosity engaged with people, and allaying their suspicions that we are a society, a secret society, and that we've got something hidden. We haven't. We mustn't forget that ultimately we are the second biggest donor to charity after the National Lottery. And that is many, many millions of pounds that are making a difference. I live in Essex, and so I get the local papers in Essex, and probably a couple of times a month there will be an article in there about the good that Essex Freemasons are doing. Unfortunately, it's usually like a thumbnail article, but it's still in there, and I read it and see it, and I think that's where we need to be making sure that our public perception, our public persona, is very much more than just a group of guys with secrets.
And you want to look at using our community assets. So you touched on the Lodge at Ipswich, the Funny Corner at Ipswich. We've got great facilities at Bury and Lowestoft. Here in Felixstowe, smaller but usable. And Sudbury's got a great venue as well.
Absolutely.
So how have you got thoughts about how you're going to try and open them up or use them?
We're building the thoughts. So we've only had our first community engagement team meeting was the end of November last year. We've got another one where we all introduced each other, and we all sat down trying to work out what it means. And we've now started to drill that down. We've got another meeting at the end of this month where we're going to start to allocate roles. And yes, absolutely, the Masonic assets that we hold around the province in the terms of the halls, these buildings need their maintenance, need to be looked after, need to be cared for. And they're available for use by the public, and encouraging the individual halls and the hall committees to work with the lodges that work there, to work with me, work with the community engagement team, so that we can make the general public aware that they are great assets, they're great facilities, and they can help therefore use to generate funds that could maintain the buildings themselves. Because we're always complaining that the buildings are falling down and the building fund needs more money.
Who's on the team?
So on the team, we have myself as leader in no particular order. We've got Peter Robinson, Scott Russell, Duncan Merrin, and Bill DeSeo Ayres, and Stephen Norris.
Some good people, then.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great people, and a lot of help from Ralph Robertson, APGM. So he's really helping us drive it forward and formulate and try and encapsulate what is a huge picture. And I always go back to the analogy of how do you eat an elephant a little bit at a time. The idea of community engagement is enormous. But actually, if we just start and strip it back to what the immediate need is, that's just getting our profile with the immediate community.
Well, I do find that having taken over as provincial communications officer from Kelvin, that the charity posts we put on, links to what we've done with the community and donations to charity, attract a lot of visibility. And that's clearly where we need to focus, really.
We do, absolutely we do. And as I said, it's about turning the Suffolk Freemason Facebook page, the SLB Facebook pages, not taking away the internal importance of the internal messages that we're giving to ourselves is about our new candidates and the ceremonies and things, but turning the things that need to be made visible, which is about the good we're doing, whether it be volunteering, whether it be making people aware that the lodge has been opened for remembrance. I don't know how many lodges do that in their individual towns. As I say, I know we do it in Stone Street, but it's turning that the bits that can go out externally, turning those outwards to say, look at the good we're doing, look at the good that Freemasons and how good a movement it is, and what a great bunch of people we are.
Yeah. and we have some great social events as well. So good luck with that. You have to come back another time and tell me how things are developing.
Hopefully Roger bits of that elephant we'll eat.
Exactly. Well, hopefully Roger Coulson won't be on holiday.
Well, who knows? Who knows? He'll probably be somewhere.
He'll be somewhere. Now, I'm going to come on later on because you're not officially MBE yet, but you've got.
I just haven't had it yet.
So you are.
I can use it.
You can use it. Oh, I wasn't sure if you. Once you
as of the 1st of January.
As of 1st, so I should have stood when you arrived.
Courtesy.
But you and your wife Nikki have done some fantastic work. But it's a consequence of an absolute disaster for you, a devastating news. 2013, 2013, when your son Tom, he was 19, died of cancer. You've done your response. I've read some of your webpage of it. It's been tremendous. Where did you get the strength to do that?
Well, I think it's sort of probably best summed up about turning something decent out of crock of that even on a private podcast I wouldn't say, but it's about turning that awful situation into something positive. Now, this is the Tom Bowdidge Youth Cancer Foundation is in my mind and in my wife Nikki's mind is subtly different to many of these what I would call in memoriam charities, where somebody has died and the family or the parents want to make rationalize and make a meaning to the loss, the tragic loss of a child, whatever reason. I'm not taking away from any the fantastic charities that are out. They all do an amazing job. The subtle difference we have, and I think this is what's really driven Nikki and myself forward, is that this was actually Tom's vision. If Tom had still been alive, he would be leading the charity. We, back in the sort of late summer of 2013, he was diagnosed the previous September with what's called a Desmoplastic small round cell tumour, which at the time was only the second recorded case in the country and 200 in the world. So rare that it didn't even have its own drug protocol. It would treat it with a completely different type of cancer. So we were just coming down from his treatment in London, where he'd been given his terminal diagnosis on the slip road from the M25 at Brentwood onto the A12 coming home. And he just turned around to us and he said, "I'm not ready to go yet. I've got too much I want to do, and this is what I want to do." And he set out the 3 founding principles of what the foundation does, which is we fund research into non-toxic treatments for teenage young adult cancers. We fund age-appropriate facilities that are outside the main teenage cancer centres. And probably the most important one at the moment is that we fund support for families where they are going through cost of living crisis, helping them keep a roof over their heads, helping them be able to make a decision between paying for food, paying for heating, paying for travel to treatment. We are saving lives and changing lives. And that's really what drives us forward, is the fact that this was Tom's vision, and this was ultimately about Nikki and myself making that vision a reality.
Because you've not done too bad, have you? You've raised a fair bit of dodge, haven't you?
Couple of quid. It's knocking around about 1.8 million so far,
which is absolutely tremendous. Now, we were touching on it. We'll go into a little bit more detail as well. But that was lovely. So Tom, when he was alive, obviously a force of nature by the sound of it, never had the privilege of meeting him. But you were at a Mark Knopfler charity event at the Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about name dropping there. Royal Albert Hall, Mark Knopfler.
You can hear it at the floor. Funny.
Yeah. What happened there?
So Tom was treated on a teenage cancer ward in UCLH, and when he was first diagnosed with his cancer, and the chemo really started to kick in, and he was 6'4", blonde hair, blue eyes, good-looking lad, just like his father.
Who is?
The moment.
Sorry.
Shot there. And he said, "I'm going to take control of this. I'm not going to let the chemotherapy take my hair. I am going to have my head shaved and raise a few pounds, quote unquote, raise a few pounds for charity." And this is around about the advent of social media kicking off, and the idea of online fundraising. So he set up a fundraising page, and within 24 hours he'd raised over £1,000. And he quite liked this, and you could see the excitement and pleasure he got every time a ping went, he got a notification for a new donation. So he started to raise money for the Teenage Cancer Charity, Teenage Cancer Trust, and he was then invited by them because he became the cancer diagnosis in a way brought out the personality that we knew as a family.
Yeah.
If you'd met him, you'd have thought he's a nice guy, but he's quite shy, quite quiet. And he was. But there'd been somebody who was a very cheeky guy and had a great sense of humour and loved his family. But the cancer diagnosis almost gave him a degree of confidence. And I remember driving down to London that evening before the dogs were saying, "Are you nervous?" And he said, "No." I said, "Oh, you're going to speak in front of all these thousands of people." And I said, "Why are you nervous?" He said, "Because nobody can challenge what I'm about to say. This is my story." And I think that's what gave him that inner strength and brought his personality out into the public domain. So he had the confidence. So he was invited by Teenage Cancer Trust to speak ahead of a Mark Knopfler concert at the Royal Albert Hall. We were in the green room at the back, and Mark Knopfler's agent came up to him and said, "Are you ready? You've got your speech ready?" And Tom said, "Yeah, I'm ready." He said, the agent said, 2-3 minutes maximum, because they're not really here to listen to you. They're here to see Mark Knopfler. Tom went out, did his speech. 10 minutes later, 7 standing ovations resulted in the biggest bucket collection the charity had ever had at the Royal Albert Hall, and resulted in a personal donation of £25,000 from Mark Knopfler himself. And that really was what kicked off Tom's desire to fundraise, whether it be fundraise there or, as he latterly wanted to do, set his own charity up. And that kicks us on. Because every opportunity I had to talk about the foundation, as you can hear, talk about it. I had my day job, which is my work, and I have my passion, which is the charity. And if I can find an opportunity to tell somebody that may ultimately become a fundraiser or a donor for us, that's job done for me.
Did Tom meet Mark Knopfler?
No, ironically, he didn't. One of the best, funny enough, the best standing ovation he got. It started when he hadn't written any notes down, and he stumbled over his words, and he just had a piece of paper prompt, and the audience gave him a standing ovation because they thought he was nervous. All he'd done was just lost his train of thought. He wasn't nervous at all. Was that he said that at one point he said, when I was transferred, he was initially diagnosed in Colchester Hospital. He said, when I was transferred from Colchester Hospital up to University College Hospital in London at Euston, he said, I haven't got really much memory of that, because I was, all I can tell you is that morphine really messes with your mind. And of course his audience is a bunch of kids from the 60s. Whoa. That's the one message they got.
I bet so.
Drugs play with your mind.
So there is the Tom Bowdidge Foundation. I've got my glasses. Have you got my glasses on?
Cancer Foundation.
Right. Okay. Well, yes. But the what's the website link?
The website is www.tombowdidgefoundation.org. We changed the name a couple of 3 years ago, because if you're in those blue coin collections at Tesco's, you see Tom Bowdidge Foundation, you've got no idea.
No idea.
So we changed the name to give it a little bit more specific. But obviously, it creates a rather large web address.
Yeah, it does. So yes, I was right. Yes,
you were right.
Yeah, so tombowdidgefoundation.org.
Yeah,
and it's the Tom Bowdidge Youth Cancer Foundation. If you go on the website, I haven't looked at. I've been through your website a number of times, but I've just found there is a link to Tom talking at the Royal
Absolutely, yes.
So
I can't watch that personally.
No, I believe you can't. But I shall look at that later on.
Thank you. And on the homepage, there's a donate league as well. So if that motivates anyone to donate or support us, then we would be delighted to. And I will be very honest that Freemasonry was, I wouldn't quite say as a lifesaver, but by God, it helped me get through. I'd only just, as we talked earlier, I'd only just become a Freemason in April. Tom was diagnosed in September. So I joined St. Luke's as an entered apprentice, and I then had to step away. But when I could go back, this warm blanket of fraternal support by people I barely knew.
Yeah.
Just wrapped around me, wrapped around my family was just amazing.
And I think what we all know, I think the stats is 1 in 2 of us at some point will get a cancer, but God forbid that somebody we know who was a child, and I haven't known children who have had it. But we always say, don't we? We all want to go before. We never want children to go before parents. We all say that. So there can be nothing worse than that for you, and I can't even imagine, or even try and imagine how that felt for you and Nikki. But the strength of how you have dealt with this. Have you got any idea how many people have benefited from what you've done?
Thousands. Because if we look at the on message of young people and their families, the age group we support is 13 to 24. And in that age group, on average, in the UK, every day, 7 people are diagnosed.
Yeah.
And they take into account their family. So we're providing support in the name of the young person who's been diagnosed. But often the support also extends out into helping the family with especially with the financial issues, buying laptops that they can't afford so the young child the youngster can carry on their studies. It's going to be many thousands. And with our research, we're looking at the fact that we're potentially saving lives as well. So we're changing lives through the support, the financial and emotional support we're giving, and then we're saving lives through the cancer research that we're funding, because Tom was treated with a derivative of mustard gas, so poisoning these young people to know them better.
Oh, that's incredible, isn't it? What's also lovely to hear about it as well, because when an individual is diagnosed with a cancer, and it's like a boulder going into the water, isn't it? Those ripple effects can be massive,
huge.
And they absorb so many within the family, if it's a very close family. But so there's the emotional support, but there's also the financial. And it's really encouraging here that actually you've taken account of that and thought, well, actually, we can give you all the emotional support, but actually, if you can't afford A, B, and C, it just adds to the stress. So to do that is
the scary thing is, I mean, I was. Just before I came up here to see you, Mark, I was just chatting to Nikki at the charities to give people an idea. We keep our cost base to a minimum. It's run out of the house. We've dedicated some space in the house to the charity. And I was just chatting to Nikki, and she was expressing not alarm but shock that she was getting more grants in than she was actually physically able to grant applications. She was physically able to keep up with. And it's just an indicator of the pressure that some of these families are. The average additional cost to a family of a child or a young person being diagnosed is about £700 a month. Nikki and I were fortunate that our employers kept us on full-time salaries, even though we weren't really working. Nikki was a teacher, and my day job is insurance in London. And we were both kept on. And one of my daughter's friends at university, their parents had a place near the hospital, and they gave me the keys to it and said, go and find yourself a room. Very, very few people are that fortunate. Some people are having to make the decision about whether they travel up to the hospital with the child or to stay with them, whether they can, as I said earlier, whether they can pay for the heating or pay for food or pay for travel to the hospital to pay for food. And they can't really use public transport because often through the treatment they're immunocompromised, so they need to use taxis or drive up themselves, and they've got to pay for parking, usually in city centres, whether it be London or Birmingham or Manchester. So the costs are horrific, and you really think sort of cancer doesn't give a whether you're on benefits or whether you're a multimillionaire. It affects people. We had one family last year contacted us that her husband, his mother contacted her husband had a mental breakdown because of their son or daughter's diagnosis and had walked out on the family, so had lost his money coming in. Mum had to give up her job. She contacted us just before Christmas 2023. And she said, I've got £20 in my bank account. We've had to sell the family home because with so much, we actually declared ourselves bankrupt. I'm paying in rent more than I was in mortgage for a smaller house. And I've got £20 in my bank account. How do I tell the children we've got no Christmas? So we immediately sent them £500.
Superb. And as a result of this very fantastic work you're doing, you got a letter in, both of you got a letter
Yes.
in November last year,
Yeah, absolutely.
saying
We've actually got 3 letters. They're M, B, and E. We're very honoured that we got a letter on the 27th of November last year saying that we were being put forward to the King for MBEs for our work in relation to supporting teenagers and young adults with cancer.
which is, I mean, it will never replace anything, but it's recognition of the hard work and dedication and how you've supported other people over that time.
Yeah, I like to
gives
see that.
comfort, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's sort of we say, and we were when it happened by the local press, and we said this award, this recognition is as much for Tom, it's Tom's vision, and equally it's as much for the supporters and the donors and supporters, because we've got a large number of volunteers as well who give time. It's as much for them, because without them, we would have achieved nothing.
Yeah.
Yes, we put a lot of effort into it, but if people hadn't turned around and said, we'll support you, we'll do this for you, we'll get our company to support you, we'll attend our fundraising event or whatever, we'd have achieved nothing. So it is a huge honour and thrill to be able to be recognised in that way, that actually, somebody else outside of our immediate circle is looking at this and going, actually, you're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, and do you care who gives you the award when you go there?
Not really. No. We've been told it's either Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle,
right?
And it'd either be the King, Prince William, or Princess Anne.
Neither are too shabby. The buildings are
neither too shabby, and neither too shabby are the three people that might be giving it to us.
Yeah.
And the lovely thing is that I'm told if you're given them as husband and wife, you go up together.
Lovely.
Which means we can both enjoy it, because if we went up individually, one of us would have been ushered out and witnessed the other one. Yeah. So I think we've told we'd both be going up at the same time. Just waiting to hear when the big date is. We think it could be in the summer.
Well, you don't have to be an MBE to come on the Suffolk Freemasons podcast, but Mark Murphy's an MBE as well. So
yes,
it's part of a group. But so we'll have to find. I'll get Roger to find somebody who isn't an MBE.
Absolutely.
But I think on the serious side, it's such a pleasure to have listened to your story. It must be still tough to this day to think of parts of it and just go.
I liken it. Some people I've spoken to who suffered recent bereavement, I say the pain doesn't go away. It just changes. There's a bowling ball held in my chest. Sometimes I notice it, sometimes I don't, but it's always there. And there can be completely random triggers that can create a memory that can invoke an emotive response. Yeah. But the other side of it is, I often say to people that there will be a point at which there are two things. There's a point at which, one, it's okay to smile.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, when you're looking at a picture of somebody that you've lost, initially you mourn the loss of that person.
Yeah.
Eventually you start to enjoy the memory of when that photograph was taken. And that's what we do. Obviously, our house is full of pictures of Tom. We've got a lovely grandson, William, who's 2, who knows and points at pictures and says, that's Uncle Tom, and knows him. And so Tom is very much an intrinsic part of our family. But we can now look at photographs of him with the memories of when that photograph was taken. It's tinged with sadness, of course, it's tinged with tragedy. But we get a lot of strength from the good we're doing in his name.
Well, go and enjoy the big day later on this year at some point. Carry on your fantastic work.
Thank you.
Send our best wishes from all Masons to Nikki.
Yep. And I know he sends all our best wishes back to every Freemason, not just in Suffolk, but across the country that has supported us, and really Freemasons. And I know it crosses over my community engagement role, but Freemasons do an amazing job. And for my family, they've done an incredible job as well, and have allowed me to crack on as Tom wanted us to.
No, well done. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. So thank you very much for spending the time talking to us today.
My pleasure, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for joining me on Suffolk Province's free and accepted podcasting as we explore the craft and royal arch. Please join me and my guests for more episodes.